Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a scrap wood DIY video, so let's hop right in. This first project, I'm going to be starting with this scrap pine board and this long scrap of wood. I'm not sure what kind of wood the long piece is. My husband is a woodworker, so I just tend to get his scraps, which is great. We're going to be making a wood sign out of this. So I am cutting this scrap wood pine down to an 8x8. I wanted a square, but you know, if you want to keep your size to whatever you have, then that is perfectly fine as well. Like I said, I cut mine to an 8x8, and then the thin pieces of wood I'm using as the trim for my frame of the sign. So I measure probably different than some people. I have to mark each piece as I go to measure, so I can ensure that I have the right length. So that is what I do. And then for the long side, I make sure that so for my signs, I like to have the long piece, um, like the long piece of trim going on the bottom. So you'll see when I put it all together, but that's how I like to measure it. So the shorter pieces are going to be the sides of my frame, and then the longer pieces of trim will be the top and bottom. So sign is for myself. I want it for my office. So I wanted more of a whitewashed look because I'm going to be putting a mold on the front on it, and I want that to be kind of the focal point. So I wanted to do a whitewash because I wanted some of the wood grain to come through, but I also didn't want that yellow pine, so that's why I did the whitewash. And I'm doing the sunflower mold. I have done this mold a couple times on my channel. I really like this mold. It is large, and I love sunflowers. So because this is going in my office, this is why I picked this one. If you are trying to recreate this, then you can pick whatever mold you want or a series of molds. If you have like a larger piece of wood that you want to turn into a sign, you know, a couple flower arrangements would be really pretty too. At first I was going to just do the sunflower, and then I decided I would see what the leaves and stem looked like with it because this mold has the leaves and the stem, and I actually really did like it, so I ended up going with that. And I'm using Titebond glue to adhere the mold to the wood. I have used different types of glue, and so far all of the different types I've used. So I've used super glue, I've used this Titebond, and I've actually used Titebond wood glue. So this Titebond is different than like the Titebond wood glue. I've used them all, and they all have worked really well. This Titebond is great. It dries really fast, like within like 15 minutes, it dries. And then it's also pretty cost effective as well. So I do like to use this Titebond. And while that is drying, I'm just going to be using the Dark and Decrepit from DIY Paint to act as like a faux stain for my trim pieces. And the Dark and Decrepit also is like a sealer as well, so I don't have to worry about sealing the trim pieces. I was because I wanted the sunflower to be the focal point, and this is for me, so I really kind of wanted to play around with it. And I haven't really used the black wax that I have from DIY very much, so I really wanted to see how this was going to look. And I applied the clear wax first so that when I applied the black wax, it would be a lot easier to move the black wax around and to also remove it. So I made sure that I got the black wax as far into the crevices as possible. And then I also did a little bit on the frame as well. I ended up removing a lot more from the frame, and I left a lot more of the black wax on the sunflower. Now I let it sit for a couple days because at first I liked how it was, and then I ended up adding some like bronze it's not really like a wax, but it's kind of a wax. I've used it before on the channel. I just can't remember what it is, but it's definitely more of like a bronze. We'll just call it a wax. I used it on the center portion of the sunflower, and I did just a little bit of the black shimmer as well on the leaves, and I really like how it just enhanced the sunflower. And then I just attached the trim pieces with this with my brad nailer, and this piece is done. So you can see I did the long trim pieces for the bottom and the top, and I really hope you guys like this. This project is quick and easy. So this is a 1x8 piece of scrap. I'm not sure what kind of wood it is. Again, it was a piece that my husband had, and I get to benefit from it. So I am going to be making a riser from this. I was inspired by pieces that I saw on Pinterest and how they were more rustic looking, and um, all kind of they made it look like it was all from like the same piece of wood instead of adding different feet to it. So that was my inspiration for this piece. So I'm going to be using, I cut this, I believe it was 12 inches long, and then I'm going to be cutting thin pieces of the same wood. I believe it was an inch and a half. um, I cut two pieces an inch and a half like wide, and that is what I'm going to be using for the legs of this riser. So I'm not going to be adding different types of feet. I'm going to be using the same wood, and I gave it a good sand. I will link my detail sander in the description box for you if you are interested. I love this detail sander, and I am not affiliated with this brand or anything like that, but I really do like it, so I wanted to share it with you guys as well. But I'm just going to be making sure that I soften all of the edges um, on all sides of the piece as well as with the legs. And then I'm just going to be using wood glue to adhere the top to the legs, and I'm going to weigh it down and let it sit for several hours for the wood glue to set up. And then once it has set up, then I'm going to also further secure the legs with brad nails, so that nothing's going to happen to the legs at all. So let it sit for several hours. And of course, here I have my crafting buddy out in the shop with me. And then, so here I am with the brad nailer. Now, I really loved how this wood looked, but it was a little bit uneven. So instead of staining it, I'm doing a faux stain on it. And to do that faux stain, I'm actually watering down Antique Wax by Waverly. I really, really do like how when this mixture dries, it looks very rustic and natural, and it doesn't look like you added like, an espresso stain or something to it. I really love how this mixture dries. So you'll have to let me know what you guys think. For this project, we are using scrap 4x4s. I am going to be making candlesticks out of these, and I'm using the Rosettes mold by IOD. I wanted these candlesticks to look ornate and old, and these rosettes kind of reminded me of like old, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Old, old railings and things like that. if that makes any sense, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of the vibe I'm going for. So I'm using DOS clay like I did in the first project, and I did use baking soda to have that layer of protection between the clay and the mold so it'd be easier to remove. And I'm using the Type Bond again. So I did let this sit for maybe about half an hour or so to let it sit up. And then I, based on reviews from prior videos that you guys have all given me suggestions, I decided, or not decided, I remembered this time to paint the molds while they were still wet to help prevent any cracking. So thank you guys. I did not have any cracks and this worked great. So because I am going for a candlestick and I want it to be old and ornate, I want layers for these candlesticks. So I am going to be using the Dark and Decrepit over the entire candlestick, including the mold, so that the mold also gives off the vibe that it is a part of the wood. That's what I mean by ornate. Like that's what I'm going for. So this is where I let it sit overnight after I have painted the entire candlestick with the Dark and Decrepit. And then from there, um, I was going back and forth. I ended up adding these little like muffin trays or tins to the top. I really like how the other candlesticks I did a couple video or I guess it's been several videos ago. I really liked how those turned out. So I decided to add it to these as well. Um, so I did attach those first. And then from there, while I was doing that, I was trying to think of the colors that I wanted. And because I wanted this to look old and ornate, I decided to add some salt wash to my white chalk paint so that I could have a little bit more texture and it wasn't going to be super flat. So I start by dabbing on the salt wash and paint mixture in as random as I could be in random areas, especially I wanted to get like the corners and like the edges of the candlesticks. So I do let that sit for a little bit while it hardens up, and then I end up painting the entire candlestick with just regular white chalk paint without any of the salt wash, so that then this layer is going to be all white, but there will be some texture. So I end up having to do 2 coats of the white chalk paint so that the the brown underneath is covered. And when it came to the molds, I I did I'd probably say about like 90-95% coverage with the white chalk paint. And I wasn't going for full coverage because again, I am wanting this to look old, so because there's going to be layers, I didn't mind if some of the brown was, faux wood would be poking through. So I did the 2 coats. I let that sit, and then I decided that I was going to do 2 different colors of chalk paint um, to kind of add the extra layer of color, but I'm going to be dry brushing them on. So the vintage duck egg is the first color, and I am focusing my dry brushing on the raised areas where I did the salt wash. So it has kind of like the reverse effect. Like I guess normally you would do like the blue underneath and then the white on top and distress it back. But instead of doing that, I decided to do it this way. And I really do like how the dry brushing looks, especially over those textured areas. It really does look distressed and it makes it look really old. And I did the same dry brushing on the molds as well. So you can see some of the wood and then the white and then the blue. And then I'm adding this celery color green. It complements that blue really well, and I'm just doing a very, very little amount on in the same areas, but less of the green is coming out, and it kind of just has that, I don't know, it just complements the blue and the white really well. I am so happy with how these turned out. I did end up sealing them with white wax. And then I believe if I remember correctly, because I did this over the weekend. After I did the white wax, I do decide to add a little bit of the black wax onto, well, I was focusing on just the molds because I wanted it to look a little bit older. And then I really liked how that looked. So then I focused the rest of the black wax onto the raised areas of the salt wash as well, so that it had even more of that worn old look. And I love how these turn out. So you guys are going to let me know what you think of this one too. This one is super easy. So this is the leftover piece from the second project. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a breadboard. I have been wanting to make a breadboard for so long and I just have never done it. So this breadboard that I am tracing, I actually bought in North Carolina last year. And so I was using that as a template. So I'm just going to use my jigsaw to cut out the top portion. I wanted this to be long because I do want to hang this in my kitchen. I kind of want to start finding and curating an area where I can display a bunch of breadboards. So I figured I would start with one that I made and I'm going to make it look old. So once I get it cut, then I am going to take a hammer to it to age it, and then I'm going to be doing the same wash on it that I did with the riser with the antique wax watered down, and then that is it. So this one is super simple and easy, but I did want to share with you guys that um, this is what, middle toward getting towards the end of July, and I have a huge event in October that I am going to start preparing for. So I'm going to be focusing on fall craft projects and thrifting and everything like that, because it's the Junkin' Pumpkin and it is like a vintage market. So I'm going to have a mixture of crafts that I make as well as vintage items that I thrift and that I get from like estate sales and stuff. So I'm going to take you guys with me. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that very soon you will start seeing fall crafts from me. And I have a bunch of wood craft ideas for the fall. I almost did one for this video, but I ran out of time. So I started it, but I didn't get to finish it. So that will be coming very, very soon. But I did want to let you guys know that fall projects will be starting very soon on my channel because I have to start preparing for this event. It is a big event and I'm looking forward to it. And before I know it, it's going to be here. So I hope you guys are ready for fall projects. I will be still doing like everyday projects, like thrift lifts and stuff too, but I will have a lot of fall projects that I'll be sprinkling in as well. So if you guys are interested in that too, then please stick around. And if you liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing. And here we go. Trigger is always again by my side and very, very curious. And he did not like, but he did like the hammer at the same time. So again, if you guys liked this video, please consider subscribing and come along this journey with me. I am very excited for the fall time coming up, as well as the Christmas craft season. Oh my gosh, this is like my favorite time of year to start crafting for the seasons. I love this. So let me know in the comments if you guys also really like holiday crafts like fall and Christmas, or even Halloween, whichever. But just let me know, say hi, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.